In this video, I'm going to talk about how to configure virtuals in DragonFrame. If you don't know what virtuals are, it's basically a way to combine the different axes to work together to create a new set of axes that are virtual. So that would be like taking a swing on a crane and track and combining their movement to make a perfect east-west move. So I'm going to go over this with my system, which is a Volo, which is kind of a standard crane setup that's got track, boom, and swing. Now, all the nodal moves like pan and tilt and roll, those can be virtualized and you can move the nodal point around. But the main thing we're going to be doing is combining the movement of boom, track, and swing to basically move in a grid pattern. This helps if you're trying to import data from a computer program, like you've done motion inside of a CGI program like Maya or something, and you need to bring that into DragonFrame, or you need to take something out of DragonFrame and put it into the computer, the movement. And so working in virtuals is the best way to accomplish that. Okay, so let's just get into the setup here. I've already programmed my rig, the Volo, into DragonFrame. So all of these axes are already set up with the proper incrementation, and everything is consistent in terms of being in degrees and inches. And later, when you're going to enter in some information about the length of the arm and some table information, you want to keep it all consistent. So in my case, I'm keeping everything in inches. So track is in inches. Boom and swing are in degrees. Pan, tilt, and roll are in degrees. With focus, I use degrees. It's not really part of the virtual setup, and you can set up focus however you want. Once you've configured your virtual axes, you're going to use this button right here with the big V, and that will switch you in and out of virtuals. And unlike some other systems that can take you in and out of virtuals, in DragonFrame, if you are driving around in what they'd call like normal axes, like these ones here, and then you want to switch back into virtuals, you don't have to go back to like a 0 point or where you were before. It'll actually do the math and go, oh, I know where you are now in the virtual space, which is kind of cool. But that's what this button does here. But you can't just click this and be in virtuals. You have to set it up for virtuals, and here's how we do it. You go over here and you say virtuals, and you're going to get this configure virtuals set up, okay? And it's going to ask you what kind of rig you have. And there's a bunch of different kinds of rigs. Our rig is a crane with boom, swing, and track. So we're going to turn that on, okay? And then it's going to simply ask us, what is boom in reals? And this is really easy because I've named everything the same. So boom is boom, and swing is swing, and track is track, and pan, tilt. You're basically just matching these to the reals. Oops, I lost pan there. There we go. Okay, now what you want to do is get some measurements going. In the DragonFrame manual, it'll show you what you're measuring. So the first thing here, boom length is B, is the from this pivot here to, if you have a knuckle at this point, it's that distance. Now I happen to know that on my rig, that is 42 inches. I also know that the boom extension, okay, the boom extension is the distance from the end of the arm out to the leveling board to the center of pan and tilt. So I happen to know that that's 14 inches. Okay, now we get into this boom compensation table, and we have in our instructions on how to do the boom compensation data. And basically, you're going to have to take some measurements by moving the boom up and down and compensating with track and finding a series of settings that create a straight line up and down. And there's a few different ways you can do it, but we list out instructions here on ways to create the data. And there's different ways to create the data. So I already have a compensation table here. I'm going to just copy it from off the side and paste it in here. And this basically is a way for the computer to create a straight line on the up and down movement, a north-south movement that's straight, by looking at this data and figuring out what the line is. So now that we have this data in here, and I don't have any nodal offsets, if you have a pan, tilt, roll head that doesn't really work on nodal in one direction or the other, then you could program in the offsets here. You could also do some fun tricks with this stuff as well, which is kind of cool. So that's it. We have the data we need to work in virtuals now. So right away, you'll see what we call the normal axes, track, boom, swing, etc., have gone black. And that's because we are in a virtual mode. We can only edit in virtuals. Now you can move track, one of the normal axes, and you can move all these boom, swing, you can go ahead and drive them around. But the programming in terms of setting keyframes is going to happen in virtuals. Now focus has its yellow color because focus is outside of the virtuals. And so any axes you'd have outside of virtuals, like maybe you have some movers or anything else on set, those won't go black. The way that you know that you're set to virtuals is that in the virtual configuration, it's set to virtual setup. If you want it off, you'd have to set it to off. Okay, so now let's actually look at the virtual axes. We hit the V button there, and this is what we're going to be programming with now in this mode. So we have virtual track, virtual east-west, which is a combination of swing and track, virtual north-south, a combination of track and boom, and then our V-pan, V-tilt, V-roll, which right now our system is actually set up on nodal, but if you needed to have them work around a virtual nodal, that's why they would be in virtual modes like that. We also have this really cool control here, this line control, which allows you to move the rig directly on the line of the lens, creating a virtual axis as you're pushing in or jogging, I should say. And you can move directly left or right of the camera or up or down on the camera. Even if the camera's pointing in a weird direction, it's pointed down or it's pointed, diagonally. If you're trying to frame up your shots, these tools are really cool and they take advantage of the fact that we're working in a more calculated space. So that's how you set up your rig for virtuals, and it's going to be different for different kinds of rigs, and we have a pretty good explanation in the manual, so you're going to want to read through the manual and make sure you're setting it up properly for your rig. Thanks for watching.